Hello world and welcome back to the Final Girl Countdown. Today's movie that we'll be discussing is Black Christmas, the 1974 film directed by Bob Clark and starring Olivia Hussey as Jess Bradford. Just as a note, there were also remakes of this movie in 2006 and 2019. I've seen all three of those, but today we're just going to be discussing the 1974 film. This movie tells the story of a series of murders that take place at a sorority house during Christmas break. So a lot of the people are out of the house on vacation, and the ones that are still staying behind are in a bit of danger. There's vice on display everywhere. There's the sorority house mother who is pulling bottles of alcohol out of pretty much every place you could imagine. There's a Santa Claus with a foul mouth. There's one sorority member who is obsessed with talking about sex. But throughout this, the actual sexual content is pretty much purely just discussions. There isn't actually any scenes like that, and the only nudity in the film is a couple of pictures on a wall. The final girl in question, Jess Bradford, is a little bit different from most final girls that people would think of. She's not this innocent virgin, and in fact, we learn early on in the film that not only is she pregnant, but she is actually seeking an abortion, which is an interesting thing for the time of this movie because it came out 1 year after the Supreme Court decision of Roe v. Wade that legalized abortion in the United States. And it's something that has aged interestingly today, as that is still a rather big topic of discussion within the US. In terms of the movie itself, it's interesting because it's a very early example of a slasher film. It's not the first one, but it's one of the first ones to have more popularity associated with it. So you can see some of the influences that this movie had on all sorts of later movies in the genre. For example, there's a lot of POV shots that take place essentially seeing like what the killer would see. Things like this would later show up in movies like Halloween that used it very effectively to show what Michael Myers was seeing as he is going about his killing. In terms of the actual violence, most of it is actually kept off screen. I want to say there's only one kill that you kind of see happening. All the rest, it's either just you see something else entirely while it's going on, or it just happens and then you find out about it afterwards. So that's pretty interesting. It's not a very explicit movie when it comes to its violence. Um, what else do I want to say here? I should have done that yet, so sorry about that. I don't know. I should cut this part out. um, Flip, what else do I want to say? So yeah, the movie itself is a bit of a slow burn, and in fact, the director Bob Clark said that he thinks of it more as a thriller movie rather than a horror movie. So that's something to take into account while watching it. Also, just as a fun side note, lead actress Olivia Hussey was excited to be in this movie because she hadn't done a horror movie at that point in her career. She's since gone on to do the 1990 version of Stephen King's It. But despite that, she actually doesn't enjoy watching horror movies because they scare her too